Hi guys, thanks for joining me this evening on Robin Hood Diaries. I'm going to pack a lot into this evening as promised about my impressions and experiences in Manhattan from 1978 until 1988 with famous folks going in and out of there, my love for the city from the late 70s through until the late 80s. That whole decade for me was all about Manhattan, sort of back in the recesses of my mind. At the age of 12, I wanted to move to Manhattan furiously. I had seen The Turning Point and other films in the late 70s, sort of, like really, there was a lot of rom-coms and other things taking place in Manhattan in the 70s that were, for me, was like just complete, like, dazzling. Even though I knew it was a gritty town. I watched Kojak. So, first trip was with my stepmother and my sister Soleil. I was about 12, my first real journey to Manhattan, completely just dumbfounded. Of course, Statue of Liberty and all that other good stuff all over the place. Again, 12. Whoa. Then arrives the opportunity to go to Studio 54. We were staying with some industry folks, friends, and Tatum O'Neal and scenarios like that were possible at Studio 54, youngsters there, and they could have swung it with me. I cleaned up nice, but so they needed a babysitter. So anyway, there you go. Missed out on that, but got to see second row on Broadway, Sweeney Todd with Angela Lansbury. So that was massive. Again, first, gulp of Manhattan. Second trip was with my mom. That was again 12, and that go around was again. We saw the Picasso exhibit, walked Manhattan to death. I even went to a club with a friend, with her not around, called Hurrah. Hurrah was a famous nightclub in the late 70s and early 80s in Manhattan, which hosted lots of famous bands, Blondie type, era bands, Hurrah. How I ended up in there underage, I don't know, but wow. Third trip was with, again, I'm not dancing around this. Everyone knows who my best friend was and who his mother was. So the story's not about them. So it doesn't matter if I say best friend or his mom, whatever. We all know, whatever. So third trip was with my best friend, traveling in a much different circle. Of course, his mother was, phenomenally famous, like globally. And so I got to visit Manhattan with them at times. And so again, now we're talking having had this double taste of Manhattan at such a young age, and I'm like living and breathing the very idea. Now I'm going in with my best friend. So at this point now, I am seeing again the Picasso exhibit again because it had not been long since I had just been in Manhattan because I was like foaming at the mouth, shitting green peaches to get back to Manhattan, anything to get back to Manhattan. This go around with my best friend, we saw the Picasso exhibit. Because of the family circumstances, I was able to have lunch at the Russian Tea Room with Marilyn and Alan Bergman. If you don't know who they are, you do know who they are because their music is sort of probably carved into your mental plate, but feel free to Google Alan and Marilyn Bergman if you need to. Russian Tea Room in 1979, having lunch with Alan and Marilyn Bergman. Can you imagine? First big table to the left as you walk in, just everything. Breathe it all in, coming in, going out. Unreal, you guys. Then we had dinner, probably the highest end Chinese restaurant in the late 70s that you could get in Manhattan, called Pearl. Again, fascinating scenario. Got to hobnob, not really visit with family. It's complicated. Private area, of course. And in that, I got, how do I put this? There was an extremely famous fashion designer there, and there was a famous person with us, me, whatever, that had a very funny not so complimentary editorial on that fashion designer that I will never forget. Maybe I'll let you know who that was. I wish I could tell you. Anyway, okay, so there's that. PJ Harvey's, lots of places to eat and be, have lunch. Again, he and his mom and I had lunch, usually in private areas. PJ Harvey's, we saw 42nd Street. There was such a mob scene upon exit of that show. I think it was at the Fontaine. No, couldn't have been. That we were essentially chased in our limo to Brooklyn, across the Brooklyn Bridge, and then we couldn't shake them and had whipped back around across the Brooklyn Bridge and was again chased by the paparazzi because they wanted to know where, my best friend was staying with his family and I. So that was like, whoa. I mean, my God, they were hanging out of the window just like you would imagine I don't know, the paparazzi freaking out would be. So, oh my God. So that is now, again, a huge gulp. Again, seeing it from that perspective. Again, the best of Manhattan. And that was really the best, seeing the best of Manhattan. So now I'm gorging, right? We're now at 1980, let's say. So then I'm going back again with mom. This is like, whatever, the fourth sojourn to Manhattan. We see Whoopi Goldberg on Broadway. Her first show, no one knew who the hell she was. I was dumbstruck. Great seats. Again, nobody knew who the hell this woman was. And I was literally like standing ovation, screaming, like standing, ovation, bravo, bravo. Or brava, as the case may be. So that was friggin' memorable. Then the Hard Rock Cafe, again, we're talking 1983, 84 maybe. Hard Rock Cafe, we squeezed into a New Year's Eve party because long story, I know the band, the jazz band, and you had to have a code word to get into Hard Rock Cafe that night on New Year's Eve. And then, of course, in the VIP area, because one of the band members of the jazz band that was hosting New Year's Eve at Hard Rock Cafe was George Segal. George Segal, I played my dad in Fun with Dick and Jane, so I was in the VIP area. I got to hobnob at, oh God, was I 17 now at this point? Yeah, with Mariel Hemingway and Jeremy Irons in the VIP area. At least I got to tell them how much I loved their work, and that's all I didn't want an expensive paper. I just wanted to say hi to people in general. So then there's that. We're at, like, I don't know, mid 80s at the outside. So okay, we're from 78 to 84. Now, a few years later, like maybe within two. There's lots going on in between, as we can well imagine with Sean. So then 1986-ish rolls around, and I take it upon myself to, well, actually, I briefly dated a guy that again insisted that I go to Manhattan, and then after that, I started making twice yearly minimum trips to Manhattan. I'd save up my money. I didn't care. I mean, there's always ticks in, Times Square to see a show, half price, single tickets or nothing. Not that I was going there to see shows, but I was definitely seeing shows. I'm not an idiot. I don't go to friggin' Manhattan and not see Broadway or off Broadway or off Broadway or any, whatever. I mean, it's living, breathing culture. It is the artery of culture. Well, in the country, I believe. Really, I mean, look at the Met. Nothing compares. So there you go. So I started making these twice yearly trips. Now I'm hooked, right? Now I'm like, I'm living alone. I'm grooving on this. It's 86. I'm not married yet. I did go back to Manhattan for my bachelor party, and I got hammered at the Chelsea Hotel, and all I remember is jumping in a cab on 7th Avenue and then ending up at Pyramid downtown. But that was my bachelor party. How did that fit in? That was 87, right? Brief trip before I got married. So now we're pre-marriage, 86, 87-ish, and I'm going to even into 88. Anyway, a lot of this coincides with my marriage. Don't get confused. Just put that aside. Like, oh, well, he was married, and it's just never mind. Okay. Well, how was he? Well, I did commercials. I did a lot of commercials. Believe it or not, my mainstay, believe it or not, was smiling and eating cheese or whatever. That's how I made my living, sort of, in between not working. Anyway, so these twice yearly trips then became like a major like main line for me. And there was a gentleman in Manhattan named Duke Todd. I hope you're still alive, Duke, because hello, 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 I love you. And I was very fond of Duke, and Duke was a good reason to go to Manhattan. It's not the only reason I would make these trips to Manhattan, because I was mainlining it. At this point, it was a drug to me, Manhattan. Anyway, for so many reasons. So I would stay at the Shoreham. If I didn't, well, there were really, you guys, there's these cheap hotels near United Nations. I don't know if anyone remembers any of this, but so you get like a United Nations address for your hotel. You go in, it is literally enough to walk in, turn to the right, step into a bathroom, step back out. You couldn't do anything but close the door if you wanted to sit on the bed. I had had enough of that shit. So I just started booking myself into the Shoreham. I think the Shoreham's are like, isn't it 57th and just down from the Plaza Hotel? Anyway, I'm sure it's $1 jillion now. It's pretty reasonable then. Very nice little hotel. So I'd book myself into the Shoreham. I'd hook up with Duke, and Duke and I would paint the town red. I was a frequent customer of Boy Bar. I was a frequent customer of Pyramid. Like, for sure, frequent customer, like loyal, happy customer. Tunnel, little on the cis side. Limelight, definitely fun. Oh God, the Gaiety, believe it or not, before like it became chic for Madonna to go to the Gaiety or whatever. It's an all nude male strip house or whatever you want to call it. It's not a club. On Broadway. For years, good God, and I had to see it. So I saw the Gaiety before it was a thing to see the Gaiety. And what else? Well, there was the allusion that I made earlier to Ruey. I'm sorry, RuPaul, who was, again, she and Lady Bunny, and these are not people that will know me now, but I was that blonde, streaked-haired, young, pretty boy dressed sort of preppy, slutty. That was my thing. I was a party boy, but I kind of looked like I could fit into like a collegiate scenario, but I could, get down and dirty in the bathroom, I don't know, of a college or whatever. That was, anyway, hi Ruey. I loved Pyramid, and I could like, camp out and live there. CBGBs, if I felt like, a little different. So these were the rounds that I made with Duke a lot of the time. Then, well, okay, I'm going to tell you one. Let's go forward then back real quick, because I know we're losing time. Then I spent quite a bit of time in Manhattan again. Late 90s, because I worked with a foundation where I was a program officer, and I had to monitor nonprofit organizations in New England. So I got to spend time in Manhattan again. Didn't really get out much. I did the shows every day because I had my meetings all day. And the thing, I don't know about it anymore because it's ridiculously expensive. It's completely untouchable. But back then, like I said, if you go to TIX in Palm Springs, in Times Square, you could get single tickets for half price, which are nothing, and you just go to shows in the evening and then do your thing after hours or whatever the hell you want to do. Now, put me in Manhattan by myself, that gets, Sean anywhere by himself, typically during those times, way back when he was not accounted for, expected anywhere, it was dangerous territory for me because then I just looked for the nearest trouble. I did attempt to visit a bathhouse in Manhattan once. Not my first time at the rodeo, And it was weird. It was a weird, like, it was not a bathhouse scenario I was like used to. It was, and I don't know, y'all probably don't know what a bathhouse is like, but this was like, you went up to like this, like the 15th floor, and it was dark, and there was like all these guys piled in. It was like no other bathhouse I'd ever seen, and I did not last long in that lobby. And it's dark, and all these people like huddled around, like standing room only, you know. And there's this little, you know, like window, and it's like it looks like it feels like a black rubber room, and obviously there's a wait because it is packed. And so I go up, and I'm kind of like, you know what, this is not happening at all. I don't need to stalk this place. I don't need to check it out. It's just, no, not happening. So I left. So back to, let's try to wrap this up. And I'll leave you kind of with a, ooh. There's a chapter in my book regarding a trip that I took with a young man to Europe for the summer at 15 years of age. That's such a huge part of my book, I can't really get into it. But we went into kind of a culture shock coming home from Europe. That trip, that personally monumental trip for the both of us. He is now deceased. And we got thrown from that summer into Manhattan. Again, here we go. I'm 15 at this time. So I'm like pre-party, you know, pre the 80s kind of, sort of, well, not really, but, you know, I don't know, 82. Anyway, so we get thrown into this culture shock. We have to spend several weeks with my friend. It's not that I never experienced the nitty gritty of Manhattan, but I was always able to go back to somewhere kind of safe, nice, mine. But I was subjected to life in Harlem with my best friend at the time, Beth. Well, as close to Harlem as you wanted to get in 1982. Way up Central Park West. So we're there. It's awkward. It's my friend. It's this gentleman and I, is in an entire chapter of my book, and it's just like, okay, now I'm back in Manhattan. I'm in between this like obsessed stage in pubescence, and then pre this like tear up the town sideways from, you know, the lungs through the asshole. And we didn't know, we were like in shock, and my friend's hanging around, and this gentleman very close to me is, you know, like he was a very intelligent guy. I think he went to the museum or something like that. Well, Sean had never been to a PRONO house. He was 15, and of course he had to see what a Manhattan PORNO house was like. So there's this theater, correct me if I'm wrong, the 57th Street Theater. The 57th Street Theater was one thing, and then it became like a blue movie house, and then it became something else. I know the building. I don't know, is the 54th? I don't know. Anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about if you're in Manhattan. Used to be a gay, you know, place, movie house. 15 years of age, I take a cab from Harlem to this 57th Street Playhouse or whatever the hell to see my first PORNO. This is Sean, man. This is typical. I'm gonna leave you with this zinger. It's a Sean one. So I go into this PORNO house for the first time. Ooh, and they let me in. Like, Manhattan, what is up? You know, I didn't know what was up with Manhattan in the late 70s and 80s. Because, you know, I mean, a toddler could walk into a leather bar. I mean, I didn't get it. So I'm in there. Okay, first of all, don't ever see an Al Parker film if you're going to see your first gay PRONO. I'm there quivering. I'm sitting in my seat. You know, the guys are walking up and down the aisles, like arms crossed, like some freaky security guards or something, like protecting us. People, you know, of course, want to sit next to me, which I am not, you know, very welcoming of. And I think, okay, well, at least I'm going to see a good PORNO, and it is an Al Parker film. Al Parker is icky. It was very icky. It was things that I wish I had never seen. I can't unsee them, and I'm glad you can't see them. So anyway, That's Manhattan. That's Manhattan for me, with me, to me, from 1978 until 1988. I have always wanted to be back since 9/11, but it has been that long. It has been nearly 25 years since I've been back to Manhattan. So I miss y'all. I miss it. I'd love to see how it's changed, and I can't even afford a cab ride. But so we'll see someday. So peace to my Manhattanites and to everybody. And I love you all as always. And of course, a 12-minute turns into a 15-minute. Now we're at 20 minutes. I'm sorry. My Robin Hood Diaries are supposed to be shorter, but I hope I packed enough in there. Interesting tidbits taking us from the late 70s through the late 80s in Manhattan. Love you, and I will see you soon enough, as you know. Take care. Bye.